Welcome back. We're diving back into the humble self-concept method, finally at the final step of this journey.
I'll step.
I know we've spent weeks now unpacking this whole idea of building a humbler, more compassionate view of ourselves. But, it's not all about us, right?
Exactly right. You got it.
Oh,
And while those first 6 steps of the humble self-concept method focus on that internal shift, step 7 is where the rubber hits the road.
okay.
This is about taking that self-compassion that you've worked so hard to develop and turning it outwards, extending it to everyone else.
So this is where we're getting into the why behind all that inner work.
I think so.
That's exciting, but I have to admit, after all this time focusing on myself, it feels kind of counterintuitive to shift the focus to others.
I get that, yeah.
Yeah.
It's natural, especially with how our culture so often emphasizes individual achievement over everything else.
Right.
But, what's really fascinating about step 7 is that it reveals this really profound truth. And it's that the same logic that justifies our own self-compassion applies equally to everyone else.
Okay, now I'm intrigued.
Right.
Remind me, what is that logic again? I feel like we've covered so much ground with this method.
Absolutely. So at the heart of the humble self-concept method is the target humble self-concept.
Okay.
And this is that core belief that we're all inherently worthy, regardless of our flaws, failures, or accomplishments.
Right.
We spent the first 6 steps really embodying this idea, understanding it on a deep level.
Embracing our imperfections, offering ourselves kindness, all the good stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And now step 7 challenges us to recognize that this target humble self-concept isn't just true for us, it's true for every single human being.
Oh, wow.
It's a recognition of universal human value,
Right.
a value inherent in each and every one of us.
Wow, that is, when you think about it, a pretty radical idea. To see everyone, even those who make mistakes, even those we disagree with,
Right.
as inherently worthy.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a big ask.
It is a big ask, and the source material doesn't shy away from that.
Yeah.
In fact, it uses strong language,
Oh,
stating that step 7 charges us with the moral responsibility to value others.
wow.
So it's not simply a suggestion, it's a call to action.
That's powerful. That's really powerful.
Yeah.
It seems like we're being asked to actively choose compassion over judgment, even when it's difficult.
Yeah.
But what does that actually look like in practice?
Yeah.
How do we balance this moral responsibility with the very real need to protect ourselves,
Right.
to set boundaries in relationships?
That is a crucial point.
Okay.
Step 7 isn't about becoming a doormat or condoning harmful behavior or anything like that. It's
Yeah.
about maximizing compassion within those limits, the necessary limits of self-preservation and societal rules.
Yep.
We're not obligated to endure abuse or put ourselves in danger.
So it's about finding that sweet spot where we can be compassionate without compromising our own safety or well-being.
Precisely.
Okay.
Think of it this way. Instead of instantly judging someone for an outburst, we pause.
Okay.
Consider what might be causing them pain. Maybe they're struggling with something we can't even see.
Right.
Now, that doesn't mean we condone their behavior,
Okay.
but it allows us to respond with more understanding, maybe even offer support.
Okay.
If it's safe and appropriate to do so, of course.
That makes sense. It's like expanding our capacity for empathy, even in tough situations,
Yeah.
while still maintaining healthy boundaries.
Yeah, that's it.
But the source material also talks about something even bigger, right?
It does.
Something about creating a societal movement.
That's right.
A movement.
A movement.
Okay.
The authors of the humble self-concept method are suggesting that this shift towards radical compassion shouldn't stop with just individual change. They envision a world where these principles are promoted and embraced on a societal level, ultimately leading to a more compassionate and just world.
That's a pretty ambitious goal. Yeah. How do they think we can achieve something like that?
Well, they outline 3 main methods for promoting this movement: modeling, discourse, and collaboration.
Okay, let's unpack those.
Sure.
First up, modeling. What does that mean in this context?
Modeling is simply about living the HSCM principles ourselves,
Okay.
embodying that radical compassion in our daily lives.
So we're talking about walking the walk, not just talking the talk.
Exactly.
Okay.
By consistently choosing understanding over judgment, offering kindness even when it's difficult, we become living examples for others.
Showing people what's possible through our own actions.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We become living proof that a more compassionate way of being is attainable. And hopefully that inspires others to do the same.
I see. So
Yeah.
it's like that old saying, be the change you want to see in the world.
Exactly.
It might sound cliché,
Yeah.
but there's a reason it resonates. Actions speak louder than words.
That's right.
Okay, so that's modeling. What about the second method, discourse?
Right.
How does talking about these ideas create change?
It's about normalizing the conversations.
Okay.
When we openly discuss the humble self-concept method, the idea of inherent worth, the power of compassion,
Mm-hmm.
we create space for others to consider these concepts, maybe even question their own assumptions about the world.
So it's not about lecturing people or forcing them to change their views.
No, not at all.
It's more about planting seeds, sparking curiosity,
Exactly.
inviting people into a different way of thinking.
Exactly. Think about how much has changed, even just in recent years, in terms of what we're comfortable talking about.
Yeah, that's true.
Mental health, social justice, even self-compassion.
Right.
These were once taboo topics, and now they're part of mainstream conversation.
That's so true.
Discourse can be a powerful driver of social change.
The more we talk about these things, the more we normalize them, and the less stigma surrounds them.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got modeling, we've got discourse. What about the third method, collaboration? This one sounds even more complex.
It is, but it's also incredibly exciting.
Okay.
Collaboration is about working together to build systems and structures that reflect these HSCM values, from personal relationships to institutions, even to our laws and policies.
Whoa, that's a huge scope.
It is.
Can you give me an example of what that might look like?
Sure. Imagine a workplace that prioritizes understanding and empathy,
Okay.
where conflict resolution focuses on restoring relationships rather than punishment.
Okay.
Or a justice system that emphasizes rehabilitation and restorative justice over retribution.
Oh, interesting.
These are just a few examples of how collaboration can create a more compassionate society.
I see. I'm starting to see how these three methods work together.
Yeah.
We start with ourselves, modeling compassion in our own lives.
Right.
Then we engage in discourse, normalizing these conversations, sparking change in our circles.
Exactly.
Finally, we collaborate to create systems that reflect these values.
It's like a ripple effect, expanding outwards from the individual to the collective.
Precisely. It's that idea of critical mass.
Okay.
If enough individuals embrace these principles, it can shift societal norms and create a more compassionate world.
Right.
And it all starts with you, with me, with each of us making that conscious choice to live differently.
But let's be real.
Yeah.
This all sounds incredibly idealistic,
Oh.
almost utopian.
Right.
Can we really change the world just by being nicer? I mean, there's so much negativity, so much division out there.
Yeah.
It's hard to imagine compassion winning out over all that.
I understand your skepticism,
Yeah.
but remember, history is full of examples of seemingly impossible changes that have occurred because enough individuals refuse to accept the status quo.
Okay.
Think about the civil rights movement,
Right.
the fight for women's suffrage,
Right.
the LGBTQ plus rights movement. All of these started with individuals who believed in a better world and were willing to fight for it.
Okay. That's a good point.
Change may seem impossible, but it has happened before.
It has.
And it often starts with individual acts of courage and compassion.
That's right.
You're right, we have to at least try.
We do.
But this whole idea of extending compassion to everyone, even those who make our lives difficult, it still feels really challenging.
Yeah.
It's easy to be kind to people who are kind to us, but what about those who consistently hurt us, who disrespect our boundaries, who seem to thrive on negativity?
Yeah.
How do we reconcile this step 7 with the need to protect ourselves, to set healthy boundaries?
That's a really important question.
Yeah.
And it's where the nuance of step 7 comes in.
Okay.
Remember, compassion doesn't mean being a doormat.
Right.
It doesn't mean condoning harmful behavior or letting people walk all over us.
Okay.
It's about holding on to our own inherent worth while acknowledging the inherent worth of others, even when they're acting in ways that are hurtful.
So how do we do that?
Right.
How do we differentiate between extending compassion and just allowing ourselves to be mistreated?
It comes down to self-awareness and discernment.
Okay.
We need to be honest with ourselves about our needs and limits. What are our non-negotiables?
Right.
What behaviors are we absolutely not willing to tolerate?
Okay.
Once we're clear on that, we can set firm boundaries, communicating them clearly and consistently.
So it's not about giving everyone a free pass. It's about being clear about our boundaries while still approaching the situation with compassion.
Exactly. We can say, I care about you, but I'm not okay with this behavior.
Mm-hmm.
We can hold people accountable for their actions without resorting to anger or judgment.
Right.
And sometimes the most compassionate thing we can do is walk away from a situation or relationship that is consistently harmful to our well-being.
This is starting to make more sense. It's not about being a pushover or condoning bad behavior.
No.
It's about finding that balance between compassion and self-respect.
Yeah.
It's about choosing to respond with understanding, even when it's difficult, while still maintaining healthy boundaries.
You got it. And remember, the self-validation dynamics framework, which we touched on earlier, suggests that the more secure we are in our own worth, the more naturally we'll embody this step 7.
Oh, okay.
It's like a cycle. As we cultivate self-compassion, it becomes easier to extend that compassion to others.
Right.
And that, in turn, strengthens our own sense of worth.
It's like that idea of inner mind congruence that we
Yeah.
talked about a while back.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
The more aligned we are internally, the more we're able to connect with and understand others.
It's like tuning forks vibrating in harmony.
I love that.
When we're at peace with ourselves, we're better able to resonate with the humanity in others, even those who are different from us, even those who challenge us.
This is so fascinating.
Right.
But I'm still a bit stuck on this idea of creating a societal movement.
Okay.
It feels so daunting.
Yeah.
So overwhelming.
I get it.
How can we possibly make a difference on such a large scale?
Remember, every movement starts with individuals. Each act of kindness, each conversation, each choice to embrace compassion over judgment.
Yeah.
These are the building blocks of a better world.
Sure.
And the more we share these ideas, the more we normalize them, the more likely they are to take root and spread.
So it's not about doing everything. It's about doing something, however small, and trusting that it'll contribute to something larger.
Exactly. Don't underestimate the power of your own actions and choices.
Right.
You never know who might be watching, who might be inspired by your example.
Okay.
You might be planting a seed that will blossom into something extraordinary.
It's a beautiful thought.
Yeah.
It reminds me of that quote from Margaret Mead. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has.
I love that quote. It's a powerful reminder that even small acts of compassion can have a ripple effect, changing the world one person, one interaction, one community at a time.
Yeah, it's a powerful reminder that even small acts of compassion can have a ripple effect, changing the world one person, one interaction, one community at a time.
That's incredibly inspiring.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that we're not alone in this.
Right.
That there are others who share this vision of a more compassionate world, and that together we can make a difference.
Exactly. And even if we don't see the results of our efforts immediately, even if it feels like we're just a drop in the ocean,
Yeah.
we have to trust that our actions are creating ripples, however small, that will eventually reach the shore.
I love that analogy.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful way to think about the impact we can have, even when we feel discouraged or overwhelmed.
And remember, the humble self-concept method provides us with a framework for navigating those feelings of discouragement.
Right.
It reminds us that we are all works in progress,
Right.
that we're going to stumble and fall, but that's okay.
We can simply pick ourselves up, offer ourselves compassion, and keep moving forward.
So it's not about achieving some perfect state of unwavering compassion.
Yo.
It's about the ongoing practice, the willingness to keep showing up, even when we mess up.
Precisely. It's like learning any new skill.
Yeah,
It takes time, patience, and a lot of self-compassion.
right.
And just as we wouldn't expect someone else to master this overnight, we can't expect that of ourselves either.
That's such a relief to hear.
Yeah.
It takes the pressure off, knowing that it's okay to make mistakes, to have moments where we fall back into old patterns of judgment or negativity.
Absolutely. The important thing is to notice those patterns, to acknowledge them without judgment,
Okay,
and to gently guide ourselves back to a place of compassion.
okay.
And remember, the more we practice, the easier it becomes.
This has been such an insightful conversation.
It has?
I feel like we've really gone deep into the heart of Step 7 and its implications for both individual and societal transformation.
It's been a pleasure exploring these concepts with you.
Oh, likewise. Likewise.
Yeah. And I have to say, your enthusiasm is contagious.
Well, I can't help but get excited when I start to see how all these pieces fit together.
Right.
It's like a whole new world is opening up, a world where compassion and understanding are the guiding principles.
And that's the beauty of the humble self-concept method.
Yeah.
It not only changes how we see ourselves, but it also changes how we see the world and our place in it.
Right.
It empowers us to become agents of change
Okay.
to create a ripple effect of compassion that can transform our communities and ultimately our world.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into step 7, I have one final question for you
Sure.
and for our listeners.
Okay.
What's one concrete action you can take this week to practice step 7, even in a small way? It could be something as simple as offering a genuine compliment to someone who's feeling down,
Right.
or maybe choosing to see the humanity in someone whose behavior is challenging you.
That's a wonderful challenge to leave our listeners with.
Right.
And remember, no act of compassion is too small. Even a smile, a listening ear, a helping hand, these seemingly insignificant gestures can have a profound impact on the people around us.
So true. As we've discussed throughout this series, it all starts with us,
It does.
with each of us choosing to embody these principles of compassion and understanding in our daily lives.
And who knows, maybe together we can create a world where kindness becomes the norm, where empathy is the default setting, and where everyone feels seen, valued, and loved.
That's a world I want to live in,
Me too.
and I believe it's possible.
I think so too.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the humble self-concept method.
It's been a pleasure.
We'll be back next time with a whole new set of insights and explorations.
Looking forward to it.
Until then, keep diving deep, keep spreading the compassion, and remember, you are inherently worthy, just as you are.
And who knows, maybe together we can create a world where kindness becomes the norm, where empathy is the default setting, and where everyone feels seen, valued, and loved.
That's a world I want to live
Me
in,
too.
and I believe it's possible.
I think so too.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the humble self-concept method.
It's been a pleasure.
We'll be back next time with a whole new set of insights and explorations.
Looking forward to it.
Until then, keep diving deep, keep spreading the compassion, and remember, you are inherently worthy just as you are.